Guys, welcome back to Brit's Book Corner, and today's video is going to be all about my thoughts on Save the Cat and how I've adapted it to work for me. Before I talk about my test results for this, I want to talk to you guys about what I thought about Save the Cat. So I have to say I did not read the book. The only thing I did do is I used it for the 15-beat system and all the information that needed to come with it. So when I bought this book, I had heard about Save the Cat on other authortube videos. The two off my head that I can think of is Brooke Passmore and Kate Kavanaugh are the two that I heard the most talk about it. And so I purchased the book after I started plotting out Project Kiss, but before then, when I ordered the book and was waiting, I was using a PDF printout of just vague information on each of the 15 beats and go from there. So what I ended up doing is I did use this as I was plotting, the rest of Project Kiss, as I plotted my Camp Nano project. I'm going to be using this as I plot, Project Kiss Book 2, that kind of thing. Like, I used this for the generalized information. I used it to explain to me what each of the beats represented, story-wise, like what each of the beats represented, what each of the beats needed to accomplish in order to move the story on, and just generalized information of how many scenes needed to be in each beat, how many, how long a beat needed to be, that kind of thing. I used it for that information. And overall, I enjoyed it. So for me to say that I enjoyed Save the Cat, it's a good thing. The reason I say it's a good thing is because I have tried other outlining systems. I've obviously been a pantser most of my life, so I've never really outlined anything. And I tried to outline a book in November of 2019. It flopped. That was bad. I was pantsing my way through my NaNoWriMo novel of 2019. That was bad. So finding my niche, in a way, with an outline system that worked for me was great. Like, it was a really big relief off my shoulders to know that I could outline a novel and basically stick to it and tweak it here and there. Before I talk about the tweaks that I made to this whole beat system, I want to talk about why I think Save the Cat worked for me. So Save the Cat worked for me because it was basically I was writing the story before I actually wrote the story. It was like getting all the main points out, and I just had to fill in the details. So it was like writing a job application, filling in the blanks. And it worked for me because I like that kind of structure. I like that it's loosely structured, that I basically wrote the entire story. So now I just need to take it and make it from this big to this big and make it work. And I really loved that. I really loved that it was like, I literally knew how to go from point A to point B, from point B to point C, and just down the line. And it was like a snowball effect. The more I wrote, the more I was excited about it. The more I realized this beat sheet was working for me. But the biggest thing that worked for me in this beat sheet that really made it stick out in my mind and work for me was that back in February, I stopped writing Project Kiss. And I stopped at, I want to say, beat 8. For me, it was midpoint. And I did not write that scene. I just kind of stopped because I was having a bit of issues. And so I stopped and I took all of March off and I told myself, okay, I will pick up come April, not realizing April was Camp Nano. So when I did realize, I was like, okay, I'm doing Camp Nano and here's what I'm going to do. And so for over a month, this book sat at the midpoint, and going back into it, I reacquainted myself and I read the beat sheet. I tweaked the beat sheet a little bit for my new way of thinking, and picked right back up and finished the book. That would have never happened if I would have taken a month off of writing a project to go back into writing a project. Like, it would have never happened before without the beat sheet. So I have to say, Save the Cat worked wonders for me there. Now let's talk about the tweaks I made to Save the Cat in the beat sheet to make it work for me. I did this because not every outlining system is going to work for every single writer. Not every outlining system is going to stay structured and be like it's supposed to be. I feel like if I can't make it my own to make it work for me, then it's not going to be for me. So that's what I did here. I made Save the Cat beat sheet for me. What I did in Act 1 is I took out the Act 3, or the beat 3, which is the setup beat. And the reason I did this is because in the first 2 beats, you're basically setting up the story. For me, it's You're, giving background to your character. You're literally stating the theme and where your character's at and just all of this stuff in the first 2 beats. And so for me, if I'm already doing all of that, I'm setting up the story. So I don't need that setup beat. It's just redundant, at least for me, because I try to pour my setup into the first couple of chapters as it is anyway. And so having that extra beat makes it redundant. And for me, it felt like I would be just adding nonsense words I would be taking out later. After I took out the setup beat, I moved on and just looked at the overall beat sheet. And I was inspired about the beat sheet from my printout that I had before I bought the book. And so the printout I had like a line graph, and it was color coded. And I was like, okay, that's color coded. I really like that. So I created Excel sheets that I've shown you guys quite a few times in other videos and color coordinated those. I color coordinated them to work for me. I, color coordinated them because it's visually easier for me, and it's visually easier for me to see my progress if I'm keeping track of my beats, when I hit my beats, when I, my word counts, when I'm hitting certain chapters. I did so great with that, and I absolutely love that, and I liked that I could do that. So the next thing I did is pretty big. What I ended up doing was I ended up taking the book, and I read through the book. And what I seen in the book was some of these beats needed upwards of 10 scenes to make the beats make sense. And for me, that was a lot because I am a speed reader. I'm a speed writer. I like to speed through things. And so what I did is I did not stick to those scene restrictions or guidelines. And so I just kind of was like, okay, I'm going to go by the feel of the book. If I feel like a beat needs to be 1 chapter, then I'm going to write it as 1 chapter. If I feel like a beat needs to have 3 or 4 or 5 extra chapters after that, then that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do what feels right for me and my story. And eventually, if I feel like I have to add more detail in later in editing, which I most likely will, I will do that then. Because for me, I felt like looking at those expectations or those guidelines and seeing those things literally made me feel like I was back in high school and college worrying over essay questions. Like, you have to write an essay, but it has to be 25 sentences or 25 paragraphs or 25 pages, or I literally felt like I was being examined, and I just didn't like that feeling. I don't like to feel forced into anything. So I basically just am using the Save the Cat beat sheet as the outline, but not sticking to the actual rules of Save the Cat. So now I'm going to explain to you guys why I made these changes. So the reason I made these changes is because like I said, I am a fast writer and I am a go with the flow kind of writer. So I go with whatever flow my story is giving me. I don't necessarily like to feel structured because for me, when I think of an outline, I think of really strict structure. And I don't like feeling that. I don't like thinking that because when I think of structure, I think of school. And I struggled with schooling because I didn't like structure. And so I didn't want a structured outlining system. I didn't want to have to worry about meeting scene requirements or expectations or anything like that. Like, I didn't want to have to worry about that. What I wanted was a system that I could outline my story, write all the main points that I wanted to guide me through without forcing me into expectations or anything like that. So I morphed Save the Cat into what I use for me now. I am so glad I did that. I have to say, I am so glad I changed Save the Cat to be for what I need. Because not every writer is going to have the same need as me. Not every writer is going to have the same need as Jessica Brody. I like to view, outlining systems as, changeable. You can change them to what you need them to be, but still use their generalized structure to kind of help you. And that's how I viewed Save the Cat, and I absolutely am just so grateful I did it because I feel like without doing that, I would have failed Save the Cat. I would have failed miserably. So for the testing I put this through, my main testing was Project Kiss. I plotted Project Kiss using the beat sheet. I successfully finished that. I wrote the book from the beat sheet. I successfully finished that. But my biggest test was taking a month off. Now, I had not intended to test it like this. That was not my intention whatsoever at all. What happened is I took a month off. I talked about this earlier in the video. And when I came back, I was at the midpoint. And because I made just a few tweaks to my beat sheet at that point to, go with my new way of thinking for this story, I successfully finished the book. So I successfully picked up where I left off and did not just let it sit because I couldn't figure it out anymore. That right there is a very big indicator that it passes my test, because I am a very bad person when it comes to writing. I can start a book and get halfway through and just stop and then go to write it again later and just can't figure out where I was because I just don't remember where I was going with the story. So using the beat sheet worked for me. I further tested it by seeing if I could use this beat sheet again to plot out another novel that I have not yet written and see if I could successfully do it and feel really good about that book and possibly even write it in the future. And it successfully passed that test. I plotted the book. I got all of the minute details I needed. Using that beat sheet, it helped me with the blurb already. I have so many ideas for this extra book that I am loving it. I am not in testing it anymore, but I am going to further go forward using this book, this system, because I am going to use this to plot out this book 2 that goes along with Project Kiss. And I am loving the idea of using this going forward. So because it passed my test and I successfully wrote a book, I successfully plotted 2 stories, I'm still going to continue to use this unless I find something further in the future that I want to try and test. So overall, it passes my test. So that's my video, you guys. I thoroughly enjoyed doing this video. I thoroughly enjoyed writing using the Save the Cat method. I thoroughly enjoyed doing it all. So if you guys have any questions for me, please leave them in the comments below. Don't forget to visit my Bookstagram for updates on all the books I'm reading. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.